Sophia Bennett was 35, a woman of calculated grace and quiet strength. From the outside, she had everything in place: an elegant, minimal condo nestled in the heart of Portland, a reliable hybrid car parked below, and a career in financial advising that gave her stability and pride. She wasn't flashy. She didn't vacation in Bali or dine at Michelin-starred bistros. But she slept soundly at night, her accounts balanced, her conscience clear. Her life, though, had not been built on ease. It had been built on responsibility. Sophia had become an adult far earlier than most, not by choice but by necessity. When she was 16, her parents divorced in a storm of bitterness that cracked the foundation of their small family. Her mother, Catherine, found love quickly in the arms of a real estate developer and was remarried within a year, eager to shed the past like an outgrown coat. Her father, Richard, retreated in the opposite direction, into his law firm, into his own mind, into silence. That left Sophia. And it left 7-year-old Caleb. She still remembered the night everything changed. It was raining, a steady whisper of drizzle tapping against the windows like a lullaby gone wrong. Sophia had just come home from a late shift at the bookstore where she worked part-time to help cover her own school fees. The living room was dark, lit only by the flickering blue of a TV left on. Caleb sat curled on the couch in his Spider-Man pajamas, forgotten cereal soggy in the bowl beside him. "Where's Mom?" she had asked. He shrugged. "She went out with Mike." "Dad?" "Upstairs. I think he's sleeping." Sophia turned off the TV, picked up the bowl, and sat next to her baby brother, brushing his hair gently with her fingers. That night she read him a bedtime story, checked his homework, and made sure he brushed his teeth. That night she became more than a sister. She became his protector, his guide, his constant. "I won't let you fall through the cracks," she whispered as he drifted off to sleep, not yet understanding how hard it would be to keep that promise. Years blurred into years. Sophia applied to local colleges so she could stay close. When their mother moved across the country with her new husband, Sophia didn't go. She stayed. And when their father's grief hardened into absenteeism masked as professionalism, she stayed then too. She packed Caleb's lunch every morning before her own classes. She drove him to soccer practice, cheered him from the sidelines while grading her own economics notes. She helped him with math problems even when she barely understood them herself. She remembered one moment with aching clarity, the night Caleb broke his arm falling from the tree in the backyard. Their father was on a conference call. Their mother was in Miami on her honeymoon. It was Sophia who rushed him to the her hands trembling as she filled out the forms, the pen shaking in her grip as she signed, "Guardian." When the nurse looked at her strangely, Sophia had simply said, "There's no one else." It wasn't a complaint. It was just the truth. By the time Caleb graduated high school, Sophia was 2 years into her career at a mid-sized financial firm, working double hours while studying for her certified financial planner credentials at night. Her dream had been an MBA, but that could wait. Caleb had been accepted into a prestigious private university out of state, and when the scholarship only covered half the cost, Sophia wrote the first of many checks. "It's an investment in our family," she told herself, even as she sold her car and took the bus for a year. She didn't regret it. Not when Caleb called her after his first day and said, "Soph, I feel like I belong here." That made every sacrifice feel worth it. What others might call spoiling, she called supporting. Birthday trips, spring break flights, new laptops. When he came home during holidays, Sophia would find herself watching him in quiet admiration. He was confident, right? Sociable. Everything she had once hoped to be before life required her to grow up too fast. After graduation, Caleb returned to Oregon, full of ambition and visions of launching his own marketing agency. Sophia helped him find a bungalow on the edge of the city, charming but in need of work. She contributed $35,000 toward the down payment. "You can pay me back when you're rich," she said with a smile. He never did. But that didn't matter then. They spent weekends sanding floors, painting walls, picking out kitchen backsplashes while eating takeout on the bare wood. Those were her favorite memories. The messy kind. The real kind. One afternoon, as they sat on the floor, hands covered in blue paint and mouths full of greasy pizza, Caleb leaned back and said, "I couldn't have done this without you." Sophia smiled. "That's what family's for." She meant it. Then came Amelia Harrington. Sophia met her at a family barbecue Caleb hosted after joining the Westbrook Country Club, a membership Sophia had quietly funded as a networking tool. Amelia was stunning, graceful in that effortless way wealth could teach. She greeted Sophia with a light air kiss and a compliment on her adorably minimalist apartment, eyes scanning the furniture with clinical amusement. Sophia noticed the way Caleb's posture changed around Amelia. Straighter, more careful, more self-conscious. As the months passed, his style changed too. Gone were the second-hand sweaters and worn jeans. He now wore slim-fit designer shirts, sported a luxury watch he couldn't afford, and began casually mentioning weekends in the Hamptons, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Sophia never said anything. She wanted to be supportive. She always had. When Caleb called to announce their engagement, she offered to help immediately. "Whatever you need," she said. "Let me contribute." "That's so sweet, Soph," he replied. "We'll definitely keep that in mind." At first, she was included, helping circle venues, flipping through bridal magazines, discussing floral arrangements over coffee. But over time, she found herself less involved. Her suggestions were met with polite indifference or dismissed entirely by Amelia as a bit basic. When Sophia asked if she'd be part of the bridal party, Amelia smiled tightly. "We haven't finalized everything yet." Weeks passed. Then came the invitation, formal, elegant, but cold. No mention of a role in the ceremony. No note. Just her name in print and a time. Still, she told herself, this is Caleb's day. He deserves happiness. I'll show up, support him, and smile like always. She bought a new dress in a soft, dusty blue, subtle, timeless. She transferred $8,200 to their shared Venmo account as a wedding gift. Money she had been saving for her own kitchen renovation. But this was for family. That always came first. Or so she thought. Because nothing could have prepared her for the moment when, standing outside a white silk wedding tent beneath the rolling hills of Willamette Valley, a place dripping with luxury and old money, her brother handed her a paper plate of hors d'oeuvres and told her she wasn't part of the wedding party. Not even part of the family seating. "We all agreed," he had said. And in that moment, everything Sophia had ever believed about love, loyalty, and family began to unravel. The first time Sophia met Amelia Harrington was a summer evening so perfect it felt like it had been airbrushed by a wedding planner. Caleb had invited her to a casual little get-together at his place, a modest backyard affair with string lights, chilled wine, and finger foods too elegant to be homemade. Amelia stood out immediately, not because she demanded attention, but because the air around her seemed to part like curtains on a Broadway stage. She wore a linen sundress in a shade of ivory that somehow stayed flawless through the evening's wine spills and laughter. Her voice was gentle but precise, her laughter timed like a metronome. And when she looked at you, it felt less like she saw you, and more like she scanned you. Sophia tried. She really did. She brought her signature lemon bars, the same ones Caleb had begged her to make since he was in middle school. Amelia took one, broke off a delicate corner, and said, "Nostalgic. Reminds me of the ones our nanny used to bake when I was little. From Ina Garten's early cookbooks." Sophia smiled, unsure whether that was meant as a compliment or an insult. Over the months, Sophia noticed the changes in Caleb, not just in wardrobe or vocabulary, but in posture, tone, even his silence. He laughed less freely, talked more about reputation and perception. The warmth she once saw in his eyes when he looked at her began to cool, replaced by something more calculating. But still, she supported him. When Caleb called one Sunday morning, voice electric with news of his engagement to Amelia, Sophia was genuinely thrilled. She squealed in delight, asked for every detail, and immediately offered to help. "I know weddings can get expensive," she said. "Let me help where I can." "Thanks, Soph," Caleb said. "That means a lot." And at first, it did seem like she was included. Caleb and Amelia visited her condo one afternoon, sitting around her small IKEA dining table with stacks of wedding magazines and guest list drafts. Sophia brewed fresh coffee, brought out shortbread cookies, and leaned into every conversation like she belonged there. "I think the Rosewood Arboretum might be a sweet venue," Sophia suggested, showing them photos of its airy greenhouse and sun-drenched ceremony lawn. Amelia barely glanced. "A bit botanical," she said, smiling too politely. "We're leaning more vineyard chic." Sophia nodded, tucking her suggestion back into her purse like a secret. Still, she stayed involved. She offered to coordinate vendor quotes, compare catering packages, and even do mock floral arrangements if needed. "We'll definitely keep that in mind," Amelia would say. And slowly, that became the refrain. Repeated but never acted upon. Weeks passed. The months. Text messages went unanswered. Calls returned days later. And invitations to lunch or coffee were met with, "Oh, sorry, we're swamped with tastings and fittings this week." Sophia tried not to take it personally. Caleb was busy. Amelia probably had a vision. This wasn't about her. But the ache in her chest told a different story. Then, exactly 1 week before the wedding, a heavy ivory envelope arrived in her mailbox. No note. No call. Just print. The union of Caleb Bennett and Amelia Harrington. Sterling Estate Vineyards, Oregon Wine Country. Formal attire requested. Sophia read it twice, flipping the card over as if a personal message might be hiding on the back. There was none. Her name was not listed in the wedding party. No mention of rehearsal dinner. No role in the ceremony. Just a generic invitation, like one sent to an old coworker or distant relative. Her hands trembled slightly as she set the envelope down. For a long time, she just sat on the couch, her tea going cold on the table beside her. She stared at the wall, at a framed photo of her and Caleb, taken years ago at his college graduation. He was in a cap and gown, arms around her shoulders, beaming. She had covered the entire cost of that education. And now, she was just another guest. The next day, Sophia stood at her kitchen counter, scrolling through her banking app. She had been saving for a modest kitchen renovation. Nothing fancy, just new counters, maybe a better sink. But as she stared at the number, she made a quiet decision. $8,200. That's what she sent. Through their shared Venmo account, the one they'd created during Caleb's freshman year so she could send him book money. She hadn't removed herself because she never expected to. The money had always just flowed one way, like love, like breath. She captioned the transaction. "For your new beginning. Love, Sophia." Then she closed the app and tried not to cry. The morning of the wedding was radiant, almost cruelly beautiful. Sophia took her time dressing, dusty blue silk that skimmed just below her knees, paired with nude heels and her grandmother's pearl earrings. She curled her hair softly, added a swipe of coral lipstick, and tucked the printout of the Venmo transfer into her clutch. Not because she needed proof, just because some part of her still wanted to be acknowledged. The drive to Sterling Estate took nearly 2 hours, winding past vineyards and old barns, into rolling hills and postcard-worthy scenery. As she approached the entrance, her heart began to race, not from excitement, but apprehension. The estate was sprawling, manicured, majestic. The kind of place that whispered generational wealth in every breeze. She parked near the back of the gravel lot, between 2 Teslas, her reliable Subaru looking like an outsider. Sophia took a deep breath, stepped out, and walked toward the white tent billowing like a promise. Guests milled about in designer suits and pastel dresses, clinking champagne flutes. She spotted Melissa, her cousin, laughing with a group of women in matching sage green gowns. Bridesmaids? Not her. Sophia. Melissa called, then faltered, her smile dimming when the others turned. The group dissolved quickly, like smoke. Inside the main courtyard, the floral arrangements were breathtaking. A wall of white orchids lined the archway. Soft music floated from a live quartet. And yet, Sophia felt like she had arrived at someone else's party. She searched for Caleb but was intercepted by her father. "Hey, kiddo," Richard said, adjusting the collar of his new suit. "Hi, Dad. Have you seen Caleb?" "He's with the groomsmen," he said quickly, glancing around. Groomsmen? Sophia echoed. He nodded. 8 of them. Matching suits, green ties. Very coordinated. 8. She wasn't surprised. Just tired. I'll go say hi, she said, already turning. At the fountain, Caleb stood with his wedding party, laughing stiffly. He looked like a magazine ad, handsome, polished, unreadable. When he saw her, his smile faltered. He excused himself and walked over. You made it, he said, hugging her briefly. Of course, she said. You look great, Caleb. Really happy. Thanks, he said. His eyes wouldn't meet hers. I saw the bridesmaids. Our cousins look beautiful. Yeah, Amelia really clicked with them. And her sister's the maid of honor, of course. Of course, Sophia repeated. Silence. Then she asked the question she'd been dreading. So, where should I sit? Caleb hesitated. There's a lovely shaded area near the oak tree. The coordinator will show you. The oak tree? She asked, stunned. Not with family? It's complicated, Caleb said. Amelia's family is very structured. We had to prioritize. Sophia didn't speak. So Caleb handed her a small paper plate of hors d'oeuvres. I saved you some appetizers. That was the moment. The rupture. The betrayal. The clarity. Sophia looked at the plate, at the limp pastry and stuffed mushrooms, and saw not food, but every sacrifice she'd made, every piece of herself handed over quietly across the years, now returned to her on a disposable dish. She smiled then, soft and slow. You know what, Caleb? She said, slipping the envelope back into her clutch. You're right. I'm not part of this. And she turned and walked. It was a Sunday evening in late August when Sophia Bennett first heard the name Amelia Harrington. She remembered it vividly, not just the name, but the way Caleb's voice seemed to shift when he said it, lighter, tinged with a sort of reverent awe. I met someone at the club, he had said over the phone, the same way a teenager might whisper about a crush he didn't fully understand yet. She's different, sophomore. Her family owns half the dealerships across the Pacific Northwest. Old money. But she's real too. Grounded. Sophia smiled, cradling her coffee mug in one hand, the other flipping through her weekly budget spreadsheet. Different is good. What's her name? Amelia. Amelia Harrington. And just like that, a new chapter began. Sophia was happy for him, genuinely, deeply happy. Caleb had been through difficult years, a revolving door of relationships that never quite stuck, half-hearted career starts, and a lingering insecurity she could always sense, even when he tried to mask it with confidence. Amelia seemed like a change in rhythm, a pivot toward something steadier. The first time Sophia met her was at a dinner party Caleb hosted. She brought a bottle of Pinot Noir and a basket of homemade sourdough, hoping to make a warm impression. Amelia was polished, elegant in that effortless way that didn't need labels. Her handshake was soft but firm, her smile perfect, and her tone just kind enough to avoid sounding dismissive. Sophia, I've heard so much about you, she said, sipping wine from a crystal glass. Caleb always says you're the practical one in the family. Sophia laughed lightly. Someone has to be. It wasn't meant as shade, but Amelia's expression faltered for half a second, then recovered. Practical is underrated. The comment lingered. Still, Sophia made an effort, offering to help with birthday planning, recommending caterers she'd worked with through clients, and even connecting Caleb with someone who could help with his fledgling marketing business. Then the engagement. Caleb called one morning, voice bursting through the phone. She said yes, Soph. She said yes. Sophia jumped up from her kitchen stool, spilling coffee in the process. Caleb, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you both. We're going to do something really special, he said. Like big plaza. The whole vineyard thing. She knew what that meant. Expensive. Let me help, she said without hesitation. It's a celebration of your new life together. I'd love to be a part of it. Caleb sounded grateful. That's so generous, sophomore. You've always been there for me. And at first, she was included. He and Amelia came over for coffee and wedding brainstorming. They brought a thick binder labeled Harrington Bennett Wedding, filled with magazine clippings, swatches, mood boards. Sophia listened, suggested venues, helped narrow down florists, even mocked up a sample budget. But as the weeks passed, something shifted. Sophia's suggestions started getting brushed aside. That florist style is too provincial, Amelia would say. This caterer's branding feels off. At first, Sophia thought it was about the details, style, preference, artistic vision. But the meetings stopped altogether. Suddenly, Caleb was too busy to meet. Calls went to voicemail. Texts were answered with one-word replies. Her updates about vendors were no longer needed because Amelia's mother had taken over coordination. Sophia swallowed her disappointment. She told herself not to take it personally, but it was hard not to feel a slow and steady erosion of her role, not just in the wedding but in Caleb's life. Still, she believed her place would be honored. Surely, she'd be part of the bridal party. Maybe not a maid of honor, that would likely go to Amelia's sister, but at least she would stand beside Caleb. She had been his guardian, his advocate, his family. Then, exactly 7 days before the wedding, she came home to find a heavy cream-colored envelope in her mailbox. The paper was luxurious, the font embossed in silver. She opened it slowly, expecting a personal note tucked inside. There wasn't one. Just her name. A date. A venue, Sterling Estate Vineyards. A request for formal attire. No mention of rehearsal dinner. No role in the ceremony. No place in the wedding party. Just a formality. Sophia sat on the couch in silence for nearly 20 minutes, the invitation still resting on her lap. Outside her window, the world moved on. A couple walked their dog. A child chased bubbles. But inside, something inside her chest cracked. She opened her phone, scrolling to the Venmo app. The shared account she and Caleb had set up years ago was still there, a relic from his college days when she'd used it to send money for books, groceries, and the occasional late-night pizza. She typed in the amount. $8,200. Her planned wedding gift. Money she had been saving for new kitchen counters. She added a message. For your new beginning. Love, Sophia. Then she hit send. The morning of the wedding was idyllic. Sophia took her time getting ready, her movements methodical and deliberate. She chose a dusty blue midi dress, elegant but not flashy. Her heels were sensible. Her makeup, neutral and soft. Around her wrist, she wore the silver bracelet her grandmother had given her when she graduated college. Something old. The drive to Sterling Vineyards was long but scenic. The estate appeared like a mirage, nestled among rolling hills and pristine rows of grapevines. The cars parked out front gleamed with logos, Mercedes, Tesla, Jaguar. Sophia's Subaru looked out of place, but she parked without shame. She stepped out, clutch in hand, gift already given, expectations quieted. The courtyard buzzed with activity. Servers floated by with champagne flutes. Guests mingled in crisp suits and designer dresses. Everywhere, there were sage green gowns and matching accessories, bridesmaids clearly. Sophia searched for Caleb. She saw Amelia from a distance, radiant in a lace robe, surrounded by friends who all seemed to have known each other since birth. She felt like a footnote in a novel someone else was writing. "Excuse me," Sophia asked a passing usher. "Where's the family seating?" The man consulted his list. Name: Sophia Bennett, sister of the groom. He scanned, frowned. "I don't see you on the family list." Before Sophia could speak, a familiar voice called out. "It's fine, Alex. I've got this." It was Caleb. He walked over, looking uncomfortable in his finely tailored suit. "Look great," he said. "So do you," she replied. "I got the invitation. It was beautiful." "Yeah." Amelia's mom worked with a designer in New York. Sophia waited a beat, then asked, "Where should I sit for the ceremony?" Caleb shifted, eyes flicking toward the rows of white chairs. "There's a quiet spot near the oak tree. We thought that might be comfortable for you." The pause. The beat. A fracture. She nodded slowly. "Right. I saved you some appetizers," Caleb added, pulling a paper plate from a tray. On it were 3 hors d'oeuvres, a mushroom tart, a cheese puff, and a shrimp skewer. Thanks, she said. She looked at the plate, at her brother, at the glittering tent beyond filled with people in her place. Then, softly, she said, "You forgot something." "What?" "I'm not just a guest." "Soph, it's not like that." "It's exactly like that," she said. "But thank you for reminding me." She pulled her clutch closer and turned. Her heels clicked softly on the stone walkway as she walked away, not angrily, not dramatically, but with finality. Because some goodbyes aren't spoken. They're chosen. They're walked. The sun was beginning to soften as Sophia walked through the grand entrance of Sterling Estate Vineyards, the late afternoon light casting a golden hue on the meticulously trimmed hedges and whitewashed columns. Every inch of the estate radiated luxury. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming roses and expensive cologne. Guests mingled in designer suits and chiffon gowns, their laughter light and effortless, as if no one had ever worried about a bill or a broken heart. Sophia adjusted the strap of her dusty blue silk dress and stepped into the courtyard. Her heels clicked softly on the stone tiles as she passed under a white trellis dripping in orchids. Everything looked like it had been styled for a magazine spread. She could practically hear the photographer whispering, "Yes, hold the champagne glass just so." She spotted familiar faces, her cousins Melissa, Jessica, and Andrew, all dressed in coordinated sage green and gray, the clear markers of bridal party status. For a moment, she froze. They had grown up together, once shared family game nights and awkward Thanksgivings. She had driven Melissa to prom when no one else could. Yet now they stood beside Amelia Harrington, smiling like Sophia was a stranger. Melissa's eyes met hers briefly, just long enough to flicker with something like guilt, before quickly darting away. The group turned their backs and disappeared through a side entrance. Sophia's breath caught in her throat, but she willed her steps forward. Inside the main tent, the reception was already in motion. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting fractured light over white-clothed tables and floral arrangements that probably cost more than her monthly mortgage. Waiters in black vests floated by with silver trays holding truffle canapés and champagne flutes topped with edible gold flakes. She approached an usher near the entrance, a young man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. "Excuse me," she said, offering a practiced smile. "Sophia Bennett. I'm the groom's sister. Could you direct me to the family seating?" The usher consulted a sleek tablet, his brows knitting together. "I'm sorry. I don't see that name listed under family." Sophia blinked. There must be some mistake. The usher hesitated. "Let me check with the coordinator." Before he could turn, a voice called from behind her, too familiar and far too calm. "It's fine, Alex. I'll take care of it." It was Caleb. Sophia turned to see her brother walking toward her, his sage green tie knotted with precision, his hair gelled just right. He looked handsome, polished, but not like the Caleb she had raised. This version had edges that didn't used to be there. "Hey, Soph," he said, giving her a quick hug. His arms felt stiff, like he was embracing a client. "Glad you made it." "Of course," she replied, scanning his face. "You look great." He nodded. "Thanks. It's a lot today." "I noticed. Everything's beautiful," she said. "Hey, where should I sit?" Caleb's eyes darted toward the tent. "We've arranged some comfortable seating under the oak tree near the cocktail area." Sophia's smile faltered. "I meant with the family." He hesitated. "Yeah, about that. Amelia's family had some expectations. It's just for immediate family in the main tent." "I am immediate family, Caleb," she said, her voice tightening. "It's not personal," he said quickly. "It's just logistics." Then came another voice. Deeper, colder. "Well," said Walter Harrington, appearing beside Caleb with a glass of champagne in hand, "real family eats under roofs." The words hung in the air like a slap. Walter's tanned face broke into a smile, but his eyes were devoid of warmth. "You must be Sophia," he said, extending a hand. "We've heard a lot about you." Sophia took the handshake slowly. "Likewise." Walter glanced at her modest clutch and added, "Hope you brought an appetite. We've got quite the spread." "I'll manage," she replied coolly. Caleb reached behind him and produced a small white paper plate. On it were 3 hors d'oeuvres, a mushroom tart, a bit of shrimp cocktail, and something that looked like a lukewarm puff pastry. "I saved you some appetizers," he said, holding it out. For a moment, Sophia just stared at the plate. Then she looked at Caleb, and everything hit her at once. She saw 7-year-old Caleb with scuffed knees, waiting by the window for their mother to come home. She saw his tear-streaked face the night he failed his math test, and she stayed up until 2 a.m. tutoring him. She saw herself signing the loan documents for his first apartment, staying up late to revise his college essays, driving through a snowstorm to bring him cold medicine. And now a paper plate. A place outside the tent. A placeholder for a sister no longer considered family. She took the plate. Not because she wanted the food, but because the weight of it in her hands seemed to say everything she couldn't. "Thanks," she said quietly. Caleb looked relieved, as if the offering had worked. But Sophia wasn't done. "Caleb," she said, locking eyes with him, "why am I not at the table?" He glanced away. "We just had limited seating. 8 bridesmaids. 8 groomsmen. Our cousins. Childhood friends. But not me. It's complicated." "No," she said, her voice sharpening. "It's actually very simple." Walter stepped in. "Let's not make a scene. We're all here to celebrate." Sophia smiled. Tight, practiced. "Oh, I'm not making a scene. I'm simply recognizing my place." She reached into her clutch and pulled out the envelope, a printed confirmation of the $8,200 Venmo transfer she had sent. She held it for a moment between her fingers, then slowly returned it to her bag. Walter's eyes followed the envelope like a hawk tracking prey. "Is that your gift?" "Was," Sophia replied. "Not anymore." Caleb paled. "Wait, what do you mean?" "I mean that financial ghosts don't bring gifts." With that, she handed the paper plate back to Caleb and walked away. Sophia didn't rush. She walked slowly, with quiet dignity, heels pressing firmly into the gravel path as the tent faded behind her. Her pulse thundered, but her spine remained straight. Her vision blurred, not from tears, but from decades of love, loyalty, and labor coming undone in one perfect wedding tableau. She reached the edge of the vineyard, found a small wooden bench half hidden behind a row of bushes, and sat down. The paper plate had been a symbol of dismissal, a betrayal, of a bond broken not by time or tragedy, but by choice. For the first time in her life, Sophia felt something she couldn't quite name, an ache mixed with clarity. Not sadness, not even rage. Freedom. She had given everything to a brother who, when the moment came to honor her, handed her a disposable dish and a seat outside the frame. And she finally realized it was time to stop sacrificing for people who couldn't even find her a seat at the table. The drive home from Sterling Estate felt endless. Sophia gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, the rolling vineyards blurring past her windshield as her vision clouded. She had turned off her phone after the 5th call from Caleb. She couldn't bear to hear his voice, not yet. Not after that. Not after being handed a paper plate and told, in every way that mattered, that she didn't belong. Back in the quiet of her condo, the silence hit harder than she expected. She kicked off her heels in the entryway and walked barefoot into the kitchen, still wearing her dusty blue dress, now wrinkled and stained faintly from dust and grass. She set her clutch down on the counter and stared at it for a long time. Inside it, folded neatly, was the printed Venmo confirmation for the $8,200 she had sent 2 days earlier. She pulled it out, unfolded the crisp paper, and read it once more. "For your new beginning. Love, Sophia." She had meant it. At the time, she thought it was generous, familial. But now it looked like a receipt for her own erasure. Sophia opened the Venmo app. The shared account was still there, Caleb B. plus Sophia B. A remnant from a decade earlier when he needed money for books, laundry, Uber rides home from parties. A quiet bridge between them that she'd never bothered to dismantle. She saw the transaction, sitting in the balance. Untouched. She hesitated. Her finger hovered over the screen. Would reclaiming the money make her petty? Would it make her cruel? Would it make her like them? And then Walter's voice echoed in her mind, Real family eats under roofs. She pressed the button. The transfer processed instantly. The funds moved from their shared balance back into her personal account. Simple. Just like that. A ghost withdrawing a gift. Sophia collapsed onto the couch and finally let the tears come. She cried for the version of herself who had always believed love and sacrifice were synonymous. She cried for the 16-year-old girl who'd become a mother before she was a woman. For the sister who had spent every holiday trying to hold together a family fractured by divorce, grief, and silence. But mostly, she cried because Caleb had looked at her, looked through her, on the most important day of his life and decided that her presence would be an inconvenience. Her phone buzzed again, lighting up with Caleb's name. She silenced it. For missed calls. Then 8. Then 15. 37 unread text messages. 1 from Walter. 2 from Amelia. 1, surprisingly, from Aunt Lisa. Sophia tossed the phone aside. She wanted someone, anyone, to sit beside her and say, "You're not crazy. You're not selfish. This wasn't okay." As if summoned, a knock sounded at her door. She opened it to find Monica, holding a white paper bag that smelled unmistakably like Thai takeout and wearing her usual yoga pants and oversized hoodie. "Jesus," Monica said, looking her friend over. "You look like the final scene of a breakup movie." Sophia stepped aside, eyes still glassy. "I feel like the deleted scene." Monica walked in without waiting for an invitation. "I brought drunken noodles, spring rolls, and enough peanut sauce to drown your feelings." Sophia tried to laugh, but it caught in her throat. As Monica unpacked the food, she said gently, "Travis, sorry Caleb, called me." Sophia's eyes widened. "Seriously?" "He was frantic. Said you left the wedding early. Wanted to know if you were here." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him no. Then I drove here." Sophia sank into a stool at the kitchen island. She whispered, "He handed me a paper plate, Monica. Everyone else had assigned seats. Chandeliers. Floral place cards. I got a plate. And a spot under a tree." Monica looked up, her expression fierce. "He what?" "And Walter," Sophia trailed off, then added quietly, "he said real family eats under roofs." Monica slammed the soy sauce on the counter. "I'm sorry, what century is this? You paid for his college, you helped him buy his house, and you weren't even family enough for a seat." Sophia felt the tears rush forward again. "I spent $78,000 on him over the years, Monica. Tuition, down payment, his country club membership. And then, when I sent that Venmo, he didn't even say thank you. Just handed me hors d'oeuvres and looked away like I was embarrassing him." Monica paused, then asked, "Can I ask something, and I mean this with love?" Sophia nodded. "When did it stop being about helping your brother and start being about proving your worth to a family that doesn't value you?" The words hit hard. Too hard. Sophia put down her chopsticks. "I don't know. Maybe it was never about proving anything. Maybe I just didn't know how to stop giving." She looked at her friend and asked quietly, "If I wasn't the one holding things together all this time, what was I?" Monica's voice was gentle now. "You were the backbone. But you don't have to break to keep standing." Sophia closed her eyes. For a moment, the silence in the room was thick, heavy. But it wasn't lonely. "I thought I'd be part of the wedding," she whispered. "Not the decoration. Not the centerpiece. Just a part. His sister." "You were his foundation," Monica said. "He just built the house on someone else's land." Hours passed. The sky outside darkened, and the city lights flickered on in the distance. Sophia turned off her phone, poured another glass of wine, and curled up on the couch while Monica took the armchair like she always did. It was the first time in years that Sophia allowed herself to stop caring, to stop calculating, to stop planning who she needed to be for someone else. She thought back to the night when she was 16 and Caleb had woken up from a nightmare, screaming for their mom. Their mother hadn't answered. Sophia had run to his room, wrapped him in a blanket, and rocked him until dawn. She remembered whispering over and over, "I'm here. I've got you." But now, she whispered to herself, "I'm here. For me." By morning, The missed calls had multiplied. 38 voicemails. 111 texts. Sophia didn't listen to any of them. Not yet. Instead, she sat with Monica at the kitchen table, barefoot, sipping strong coffee. "What are you going to do?" Monica asked. Sophia stirred her spoon slowly, watching the cream swirl into the dark liquid like a quiet storm. "I don't know," she said. "But for the first time, I'm not making that decision with guilt." Monica smiled. "That's called growth." Sophia looked out the window as the city woke up beneath a pale blue sky. In the silence that followed, something profound shifted, not in the world, but in her. For the first time, she asked herself, "What do I need?" Not what does Caleb need. Not what does the family expect. Not how do I keep the peace. Just one question. Simple. Radical. What about me? And for Sophia Bennett, that was the beginning of everything. Sophia woke the next morning with sunlight pouring through her blinds and a strange, unfamiliar feeling in her chest. Stillness. Not numbness. Not the dull ache she'd grown used to. But something new. Something lighter. She sat up on the couch slowly, blinking against the light. The smell of strong coffee drifted from the kitchen. Monica, of course, already awake, already brewing the day into something more manageable. "Morning," Monica greeted, sliding a warm mug into Sophia's hands. "You look like you slept for 10 years. "I feel like I finally stopped carrying the weight of 10, Sophia murmured. They sat in companionable silence for a while, sipping coffee and listening to the distant hum of city life outside the window. Sophia's phone buzzed again on the kitchen counter, vibrating with another flood of calls and texts. She didn't move to check it. Instead, she stared down at the steam curling from her mug. "Do you know what I realized last night?" she said finally. "I've been auditioning for love my whole life, especially with my family. If I gave enough, helped enough, forgave enough, maybe I'd finally be seen. Chosen. Protected." Monica didn't interrupt. "I wasn't just Caleb's sister," Sophia continued. "I was his safety net. His emergency contact. His bank. His therapist. And the moment I stopped playing one of those roles, it was like I didn't even exist." Monica set her mug down carefully. "Soph, that's because they didn't see you as a person. They saw you as a function. You were useful. Until you weren't." The words stung. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Sophia nodded slowly, her eyes shining but dry. "It's time I started treating myself the way I've treated everyone else." "Exactly," Monica said, her voice steady. "No more being the family's emotional mule. You're not their savior. And you're allowed to stop." That afternoon, Sophia made her first real decision. Not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but out of clarity. She unplugged the shared Venmo account. She deleted the wedding photos that had trickled onto her feed. She even went through her email and unsubscribed from all the automatic payment alerts tied to Caleb's past due bills. The financial umbilical cord she'd never cut, she sliced it clean. That evening, a text came from her mother. "We need to talk. Meet me at Café Lauren. Tomorrow at noon." Sophia stared at the screen for a full minute, her pulse oddly calm. There was no question of whether she'd go. There was only how she would show up. Café Lauren was the kind of place that served salads with edible flowers and charged $6 for sparkling water. Her mother had always adored it, airy, upscale, curated. The kind of place where conversations stayed quiet and controlled. Catherine Bennett, now Catherine Whitman, was already seated when Sophia arrived. Perfect posture, hair meticulously blown out, pearl earrings glinting in the afternoon light. A woman born to perform grace under pressure. Sophia walked over in a simple navy blouse and black slacks. Nothing fancy, but elegant. She looked like exactly who she was, a woman who knew her value, whether others acknowledged it or not. "Hello, Mom," she said calmly, sliding into the seat opposite her. Catherine's lips curved into a tight smile. "At least you're punctual." Sophia didn't respond to the jab. She waited as the server brought menus, then requested just a coffee. Her mother ordered a small salad, no dressing. When the server left, Catherine folded her hands. "I'll get straight to the point. Your brother is in trouble." Sophia arched an eyebrow. I figured. The wedding was far more expensive than anticipated, her mother continued, not a trace of irony in her voice. Walter agreed to cover a portion, but has since withdrawn. Some of the vendors haven't been paid. Caleb and Amelia are facing lawsuits. Sophia sipped her coffee. Her mother leaned in slightly. He's asking for your help. Well, technically, I'm asking on his behalf. He needs $10,000 to settle the remaining balances. Just until they get on their feet. Sophia set her mug down. No. Catherine blinked. Excuse me? I said no, Sophia repeated, her voice steady. I'm not lending Caleb another dime. Catherine's mouth tightened. This isn't about lending. It's family. He's your brother. No. It's exactly about lending. It's about a pattern. And it ends here. Her mother drew in a breath, clearly preparing for a lecture. Sophia, don't be dramatic. You know Caleb has always struggled to manage finances. You've been the responsible one. That's your nature. Exactly, Sophia said. It's my nature, not my responsibility. Catherine's eyes narrowed. Do you really want to abandon him like this? After all you've done? I'm not abandoning him, Sophia said firmly. I'm stepping away from a role I was never meant to play for life. I'm his sister, not his solution. Her mother was silent for a long moment. Then came the dagger. You've always needed control. That's what this is really about. Power. No, Sophia said. It's about dignity. She stood, placing a $20 bill on the table to cover the coffee. Caleb can figure it out. Or he can't. Either way, it's not my job anymore. And I'm done being punished for having boundaries. Catherine's voice rose, uncharacteristically sharp. If you walk out now, don't expect to be welcomed back with open arms. No holidays. No birthdays. No family gatherings. You'll be choosing to cut yourself off. Sophia smiled. And it wasn't bitter, it was free. You already cut me off when you let me be humiliated at that wedding. This is just me making it official. And with that, she turned and walked away. That night, she stood at her apartment window, looking out over the twinkling lights of Portland. Her inbox remained full, messages from Caleb, Amelia, even a furious email from Walter threatening legal action if Sophia didn't honor her promise. She didn't respond to any of them. Instead, she wrote herself a different kind of message. Dear Sophia, you've given enough. Now it's your turn. To rest. To grow. To receive. Love me. She printed it. Framed it. Hung it above her desk. For the first time in her adult life, Sophia Bennett had said no. No to guilt. No to being the backup plan. No to the false peace that came from enabling dysfunction. And in that powerful, quiet no, she finally heard the whisper of something new. Yes. Yes to freedom. Yes to healing. Yes to her own life. It had been a quiet week. Sophia spent most of it rediscovering the strange, unfamiliar rhythm of a life that wasn't defined by someone else's needs. She took long walks by the river near Selwood, read the novel that had been gathering dust on her nightstand, and even started repainting the accent wall in her living room, something she'd put off for nearly 2 years. The silence in her phone was a blessing she hadn't known she needed. But late Friday afternoon, the stillness cracked. A text. Caleb, can we meet? Please. Just you and me. I need to talk. Sophia stared at the message for a long time. A week ago, the answer would have been a reflexive yes. She would have rushed to the rescue, rearranged her calendar, driven across town to fix whatever storm he had created or walked into. But now she paused. She breathed. And then she replied. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. Mount Tabor Park. Bring nothing but the truth. The next morning, Sophia arrived early. The air was crisp, the early signs of fall beginning to show in the rust-colored tips of leaves. The trails were dotted with joggers and dogwalkers, but her bench, facing the reservoir and overlooking the treetops of Portland, was still empty. She sat quietly, hands clasped, eyes scanning the horizon as the sun climbed higher. Then she heard his footsteps. Caleb looked threatened. There was no other word for it. His usually styled hair was unkempt, his shirt wrinkled and untucked, dark circles under his eyes. But what struck Sophia most wasn't how disheveled he looked, it was how small. Like someone who had finally seen the limits of his own charm and privilege. He didn't speak right away. He just sat down beside her, elbows on knees, staring ahead. After a long silence, he finally said, "I messed up." Sophia didn't say anything. She let him keep going. "Walter was never going to let you in," he said quietly. "He told me early on that you were a complication. That you didn't fit the brand of the Harrington family. That you were too close. Too involved. That you made me weak." Sophia's jaw tightened. "So he pushed me out." Caleb nodded. Subtly at first. Then not so subtly. He kept saying Amelia and I needed a clean break from the past if we wanted to have a successful future. And I went along with it. "Why?" she asked, her voice raw. Caleb turned toward her, his eyes hollow. "Because I thought if I could just become the version of me they wanted, maybe I'd finally feel like I belonged somewhere. That I'd earned something better. I was so desperate to prove I was more than your little brother, the one you always had to save." Sophia looked away, her heart aching, but guarded. "And now?" she asked. Caleb sighed. "Amelia and I are separated." She sided with Walter. "When the invoices rolled in and things got ugly, she told me I had to fix it or leave. I couldn't fix it. So I left." Sophia stayed silent. "I know I don't deserve it," he said. "But I needed to say it. I'm sorry, Sophia. Not just for the wedding. For the years. For letting you carry everything, and then acting like your weight didn't count. You've always been my family. My only real one." Tears blurred her vision, but she blinked them back. This wasn't the moment to dissolve. It was the moment to define. "I forgive you," she said quietly. "But I'm not going back to the way things were." Caleb nodded. "I know. No more bailing you out. No more draining my savings to cover your mistakes. No more being your emergency contact, emotional support hotline, and ATM rolled into one." "I'm not asking for that," he said, eyes fixed on the gravel beneath their feet. "I know," she said. "But I need to say it. For me." Caleb swallowed hard. "What now?" Sophia turned to him fully. "Now, we start over. As siblings. Not as savior and dependent. That means healthy distance. Clear boundaries. And if you want a relationship with me, it has to come from respect, not need." He nodded slowly. "I can do that." "I hope so." Sophia stood and stretched slightly. The air was warmer now, the light shifting through the trees. "You know," she said, turning back to him, "I used to think love meant giving until it hurt. Now I think it means giving without disappearing." Caleb looked up at her. "I never meant to make you disappear." "But you let it happen," she said gently. "And I let it happen too. That's on me." He stood too, hands stuffed into his jacket pockets. "Will you come by sometime? Just for coffee?" "No agenda." Sophia gave a half smile. "Maybe. But I'll bring my own cup." They both laughed softly. And for the first time in years, it felt real. That night, Sophia returned home and did something she hadn't done in a long time. She journaled. Not about tasks or reminders, but about herself. Her feelings. Her identity. She wrote, "Forgiveness is not permission to repeat. Forgiveness is closure. Boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that don't collapse. I can love without losing. I can help without hollowing. And I will never again apologize for needing space to breathe." She closed the journal, poured herself a glass of wine, and stepped out onto her small balcony overlooking the quiet Portland skyline. It was still, beautiful, and for once so was she. 3 months had passed, not with fireworks or drama, but with the quiet rhythm of ordinary days, days filled with rebuilding, redefining, and relearning how to live without the weight of unspoken contracts and invisible debts. Sophia had always imagined change as a storm, sudden, violent, reshaping everything at once. But in reality, it arrived like autumn, soft, gradual, and entirely inevitable. Caleb had moved out of the Harrington family estate 6 weeks after the wedding fallout. He'd traded in his luxury SUV for a 10-year-old Honda Civic and canceled his country club membership without fanfare. The penthouse apartment downtown became a 600-square-foot walk-up on the east side, modest but honest. His walls were no longer decorated with curated artwork chosen by Amelia's interior designer but with second-hand prints and postcards Sophia had once mailed him from her business trips. He'd picked up freelance marketing gigs, real work this time. No more connections handed over on a silver platter, no more client meetings set up by in-laws. He spent late nights editing copy, learning ad algorithms, and occasionally delivering groceries on the weekends to make ends meet. Pride? There wasn't much left. But humility, he was learning, had more room to grow. As for Sophia, she had made one quiet decision that changed everything. She enrolled in the part-time MBA program at Oregon State, something she dreamed of doing a decade ago, back when she first helped Caleb through college and shelved her own ambitions to keep his afloat. She also, for the first time in years, went on a date. A real one. Not a networking dinner in disguise or a favor for a friend. His name was Jordan. He was a software engineer who loved dogs, poetry, and made her laugh harder than she'd expected. More importantly, he didn't need her to fix anything. He just liked being with her. It felt unfamiliar and beautiful. It was a drizzly Saturday afternoon when Caleb texted her. "Got time for coffee? My treat. I'll even bring actual ceramic cups." Sophia smiled. She replied, "Let's meet at Finch and Bloom." "I'm buying the second round." Finch and Bloom was a tucked-away cafe with mismatched chairs, hanging plants, and the smell of cinnamon and cardamom clinging to the air like a warm hug. They discovered it years ago, back when Caleb was in college and Sophia used to meet him there after night classes with warm croissants and tax advice. When she walked in, Caleb was already there, 2 lattes in hand. No suit, no polished exterior. Just jeans, a sweater, and tired eyes that had seen more in 3 months than they had in the previous 10 years. He smiled when he saw her. "Still hate foam art?" he asked, holding up a cup with a slightly lopsided heart. "Still think it's a scam to charge $6 for milk bubbles," she replied with a grin, sitting down. They sipped in silence for a moment. It wasn't awkward, it was peaceful. Then Caleb spoke. "You were right about all of it." Sophia didn't respond. She let him go on. "I used to think I was entitled to your help, that you owed me. But now, I get it. You didn't owe me anything. You chose to love me, and I took that for granted." He paused, eyes glassy. "I'm sorry. For all of it." Sophia reached across the table, not to hold his hand, but to hand him a napkin. It made him chuckle through his tears. "I forgive you," she said gently. "But that doesn't mean I go back to being the person who says yes to everything." "I wouldn't let you," he replied. "Not anymore." They looked at each other then, not as savior and dependent, not as debtor and lender, but as 2 grown-ups who had finally learned how to stand on their own legs, even if they wobbled now and then. "I'm not proud of who I was," Caleb said, "but I'm proud of who I'm becoming." "You should be," Sophia said. "You've taken responsibility. You're showing up. That's what matters." He smiled, then added, "You seem lighter. Happier. Is it the grad school glow?" She laughed. "It's definitely not the assignments. But I think for the first time in a long time, I'm building a life for me. Not in reaction to someone else. Not to keep everything from falling apart." Caleb nodded. "Feels weird, doesn't it?" "Yeah," she said. "But good." They sat there a little longer, watching the rain patter softly against the window. Around them, the cafe buzzed with quiet life, baristas steaming milk, students typing away, couples leaning into shared laughter. Sophia felt a calmness settle over her chest, not the false peace of keeping the family held together with tape and tears, but the real kind. The kind that comes from releasing yourself from roles you never chose, but kept playing anyway. She glanced at her brother. "You know," she said, "I used to think my worth came from how much I could give. But lately I've realized my worth was never measured in sacrifice." "It was always there," Caleb said, "even when I didn't see it." She nodded. "And now? I only give when it comes from joy. Not from fear. Not from guilt." They raised their cups in a mock toast. To choosing ourselves, he said. To giving without disappearing, she added. And in that moment, with coffee warming their hands and the rain softening outside, they weren't reliving the past. They weren't trying to rewrite it either. They were finally writing a new chapter, one where family didn't mean financial burden, emotional martyrdom, or unspoken contracts. It meant respect. It meant space. It meant showing up, not showing off. That night, Sophia came home and stood in front of the mirror. She didn't look for flaws. She didn't mentally list her responsibilities. She just stood there, present with herself, and whispered, "You don't have to earn love by losing yourself anymore." Then she did something small, almost silly. She lit a candle. Not to mask pain, but to celebrate peace. Not to cover sorrow, but to illuminate selfhood. And as the soft glow danced across her living room walls, Sophia Bennett finally felt what she had been chasing all her life. Not control, not perfection, not validation. Just one thing. Enoughness. The first time Sophia Bennett said no, it didn't echo through the world like thunder. It didn't shatter glass or burn bridges. In fact, it was barely above a whisper. But for her, it was a revolution. For most of her adult life, Sophia had mistaken sacrifice for love. She had been taught, like many people, especially women, that loving someone meant giving until it hurt. That being family meant never saying enough. That the bond of blood automatically came with a contract of unquestionable loyalty, no matter how uneven the terms. She had learned how to soothe, how to fix, how to make excuses on others' behalf. And she was so good at it, no one ever thought to ask if she was tired. But Sophia knew. Every overdraft from her savings account. Every late-night call she picked up while suppressing her own panic. Every time she paid someone else's bill instead of investing in her own dreams. She knew. What she didn't know, what took her 35 years to realize, was that love without respect isn't love at all. The wedding had been the breaking point, the paper plate, the folding chair, the absence of a seat at the family table. But that moment didn't exist in a vacuum. It was the final puzzle piece in a long mosaic of moments when Sophia was expected to give and never ask, to bend but never break, to be reliable, resourceful, and silent. Until she wasn't. Until she whispered a word no one expected. No. No to more handouts. No to being called ungrateful when she set limits. No to gaslighting disguised as concern. No to guilt dressed as family tradition. And in doing so, she discovered a lesson she'd been denied for too long. Family is not a debt you owe. Love is not measured by how much you're willing to bleed for it. And you do not become less kind by becoming more whole. Sophia didn't stop loving Caleb when she said no. She didn't stop being a sister. Or a daughter. She simply stopped being a vessel for other people's expectations. She stopped tying her worth to how much she could rescue, save, or fix. What she gained in return wasn't applause, it was clarity. She finally understood that real love, mature love, mutual love, makes space for boundaries. It doesn't demand martyrdom. It invites honesty. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone isn't to write them another check. It's to say, I believe you can figure this out. Because I believe in you. And because I believe in me too. Sophia used to believe that healing looked like reconciliation. Now, she knows it sometimes looks like release. It looks like standing in front of a mirror without the weight of the world on your shoulders. It looks like pursuing your own goals, even if it means someone else has to stand on their own for the first time. It looks like refusing to sit at a table where you're only welcome when you're useful. It looks like loving people with open hands, not clenched fists. And it sounds, sometimes, like silence, glorious, guiltless silence, after you've finally stopped explaining why you matter. There's a quote Sophia once wrote in her journal during those first weeks of recovery. She didn't know where she heard it, but it stayed with her. You do not have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. It became her compass. And with every no that followed, from declining her mother's financial requests to politely distancing herself from old enablers, she realized she wasn't becoming colder. She was becoming clearer, braver, freer. And here's the most powerful truth Sophia now lives by. Saying no doesn't make you unloving. It makes your love sustainable. When you say no to being used, you say yes to being seen. When you say no to constant giving, you say yes to balance. When you say no to guilt, you say yes to dignity. And when you say no to the roles others wrote for you, you finally have the space to write your own story. Real-life application. 150 words. Sophia's story is one that resonates deeply in families across the world, especially in cultures where duty and loyalty are praised, but boundaries are mistaken for betrayal. If you've ever felt guilty for saying no to someone you love, ask yourself, are they respecting your yes or expecting your silence? Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, not emotional leverage. Whether it's a sibling, parent, partner, or friend, your love should never come at the cost of your mental health, financial security, or personal dreams. You're allowed to redefine what love looks like for you. You're allowed to put down what was never yours to carry. And most importantly, you're allowed to say no and still be good.